Discover the shocking news that transformed a wedding. Mother-in-law reveals an incredible secret. Sarah stood in her kitchen, glancing out the window at the sun-drenched street of Maplewood, the quaint Midwestern town she called home. In just days, she would be exchanging vows with David, her college sweetheart, a dream blossoming into reality. But that sense of joy was overshadowed by an unexpected call from Margaret, David's mother, inviting her for coffee. The warmth of anticipation twisted into a knot of anxiety in her stomach. What could be so urgent? As they sat in the cozy cafe, the local art dotted across the walls, Sarah stirred her latte nervously. Margaret leaned in, lowering her voice almost conspiratorially, her expression heavy. "There's something you need to know about David." The words sent shivers down Sarah's spine. Suddenly the air felt thicker, almost suffocating, as Margaret revealed that David had a half-brother named Jake, the result of a past she had been ignorant of. Jake had passed away tragically mere weeks ago, a fact buried alongside Margaret's guilt. How could this have been kept hidden? Sarah's mind raced. This revelation twisted the blissful image of their wedding into a maze of confusion and anger. What did this mean for their future? David had always presented himself with honesty, treating her as an equal partner. Could there be fractures in that trust? She had envisioned a life filled with shared dreams, but now fear seeped in, gripping her heart. How could she confront David with this knowledge? Would it shatter the love they had built? Her internal conflict flared. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the days blurred into each other, Sarah embarked on a journey of discovery about Jake. The more she learned about him, the more unbearable her emotions became. He had been an artist, the kind of artist who saw beauty where others overlooked it, yet he carried the burden of being a stranger within his own family. His struggles resonated with her own fears of belonging ever since she learned about his existence. They gnawed at her heart, conflicting with the love she felt for David. Would the truth open a chasm between them, revealing cracks she never knew existed? The day of the wedding arrived, the venue sparkling with fairy lights and joy. Yet beneath the surface, a tempest brewed. As the ceremony approached, Sarah's heart raced with dread. What if she ruined everything by revealing the secret? Would David hate her for a truth he never knew? In that quiet moment right before she walked down the aisle, Sarah knew this was not merely about love or vows. It was about the very foundation of their lives together. Taking a deep breath, she felt the delicate balance of hope and anxiety shifting, and the question knotted in her throat. Could love truly conquer the storm of revelation yet to come? As the music began and the echoes of her friends and family filled the air, Sarah halted, standing before the altar, yet feeling miles away from the life she imagined. The weight of the secret coiled tightly within her, almost palpable. She glanced at David, who stood poised and radiant, wholly unaware of the storm brewing inside her. In that moment, torn between the man she loved and the truth that threatened their union, she felt an insight pierce her confusion. Marriage wasn't just about shared dreams, it was also the pain of honesty. Almost instinctively, she envisioned a life where their vows would be built on truth, not deception. Deep down, she knew David deserved to know about Jake. The tremors of doubt morphed into an imperative resolve. The truth, like a finely sharpened sword, felt necessary for the bond they were about to forge. Wouldn't each sacred promise be more meaningful when grounded in reality? In the fragmented seconds that followed, she could almost hear the silent ticking of a clock, each beat echoing louder as she embraced her internal narrative. A wallowing fear of confrontation battling against a fierce desire for authenticity. Just as the officiant began his speech, those two forces collided, and with a determined breath, Sarah stepped forward. She didn't think of Jake, nor of the potential fallout. Instead, she focused on David's face, a canvas of hope, love, and trust. As he smiled, their shared memories, built upon years of unguarded moments, flooded her consciousness. How could she betray that core equation they had constructed together with secrets that weren't hers to bear? Yet with each word that passed through the officiant's lips, her heart anchored deeper into a chasm of discomfort. Her palms began to sweat as she thought of what lay beyond today. Would they still be Sarah and David if their future stood on a shaky foundation? Suddenly the ceremony felt like a masquerade, predicated on an invisible fissure at its center. As the vows neared, dread tightened its hold. But in that moment of ultimate vulnerability, a flicker of hope ignited. She envisioned approaching David after the "I do." In the quiet of the reception, she could tell him everything. The truth would hit hard, but breaking it gently lay in her hands. It was her responsibility to present not just the perfect wife, but a genuine partner grounded in reality. The officiant's voice rose, amplifying the weight of each syllable. "Do you take this man?" Her pulse quickened. It felt like a rallying cry. The sincerity of the commitment they were about to declare washed over her like a wave. She realized then that it wasn't just a dazzling wedding. It was a bold step into the unknown, fraught with uncertainties but also filled with potential. As she finally joined David in the sacred exchange, her heart swelled beyond control. "I do," escaped her lips, heavy yet liberating. But somewhere, deep within, she understood that each "I do" was layered with a promise, not only of love, but of facing what lay ahead together, without the veil of secrets. And as the audience erupted into applause, Sarah's gaze locked onto David, her mind racing ahead. The reality of their union began to form new questions. How would he react? What life awaited them as they confronted the aftermath of the truth? With her heart torn between hope and anxiety, Sarah steeled her resolve. She had opened the door to a new chapter. The moment of truth had only begun. What uncharted territory awaited them on the other side of their vows? As the reception unfolded, illuminated by twinkling lights and laughter, Sarah felt a dissonance between the jubilant atmosphere and the tempest swirling within her. Each cheer, each toast, echoed like a reminder of her impending honesty. She clutched her glass tightly, the icy surface contrasting with the warmth of celebration surrounding her. It wasn't merely a celebration of a union. It was the crux of an internal conflict that simmered beneath the surface of her smile. David was swept up in the moment, chatting with friends and family, his laughter ringing out like a beacon of love and reassurance. Yet, Sarah's gaze drifted beyond the cheerful conversations, her mind calculating the delicate prefacing of truth. The weight of her secret felt heavier with every passing second. How she would weave Jake into their life tapestry was a puzzle she wasn't prepared to solve. The reality hit her. She had crossed a threshold but was still tethered to the fragments of her past. As she watched David animatedly recounting stories from their college days, she gleaned insights into the man he had become, so secure in their partnership, yet unaware of the cracks that threatened their facade. The delicious foods on her plate went largely untouched as she wrestled with the thought of disclosing her past with Jake. What if honesty shattered the joy that had been built on the back of hidden facets of her life? Did love mean sharing everything, even the things that might hurt the one you cherish? The more Sarah contemplated, the more her resolve solidified. This was not just about her anymore. The decision to tell David was a profound step for herself, not solely for him. She envisioned the lines of their shared future. Boundless love, but layered with complexity. With the right heart, acknowledging the past could transform vulnerability into a powerful base for their new life. She excused herself from their table, heart pounding as she made her way through the revelers, each joyous cheer like an obstacle in her path. The exits loomed ahead like a sanctuary, a necessary space to gather her thoughts before she faced the inevitable. Outside, the air was crisp, cutting through the warmth that had enveloped the ballroom. She closed her eyes, visualizing the moment, the first time they met, the way David had swept her off her feet. Every memory she conjured served as a reminder that, ultimately, it was honesty that solidified bonds between people. If she had known the truth about Jake before, she wouldn't have hesitated to share it. As Sarah inhaled deeply, a surprising clarity emerged. The truth could reshape their narrative. There was beauty in raw authenticity. The choice would not just inform David, but illuminate parts of herself that had lain dormant. The final connection could thrive in the illuminated shadows of true understanding, rather than falter under the secrecy she had carried. Just as she contemplated re-entering the fray, she caught a glimpse of David through the glass doors, his laughter trailing after another joke. The familiar surge of affection collided with growing courage. This wasn't merely about revealing a layer of complexity. It was a chance to embrace deeper connectivity. With renewed determination, she pushed through the door, heart racing for more than just the act of confession. It was about standing firm in the person she was becoming. Sarah would embrace the breadth of her life experiences, understanding that they contributed to who she was beside David in that moment. But as she crossed the threshold back into the jubilant chaos, a familiar figure caught her eye at the edge of the crowd. Jake, his face registering an array of emotions that sent a shiver down her spine. Disorientation replaced her resolve in an instant, and she could feel the weight of her past threatening to call her back again. The moment of confrontation was echoing near, pressing her toward an unknown threshold. What was Jake doing here? And how would this reality intertwine with the truths she was ready to reveal? The unanswered questions surged like a whirlwind, threatening to consume her newfound courage. The laughter from the reception hall faded as Sarah stood frozen, her breath hitching at the sight of Jake. His presence twisted the air around her, stirring an unfamiliar storm of emotions. She felt her resolve waver, the shining courage dimming under the weight of history now standing before her. Why was he here? The question echoed in her mind like a gong, and she could almost hear the clock ticking behind her as she weighed her options. Jake was not the rupture she had expected in this meticulously crafted evening, outfitted with love and promise. A cacophony of memories crashed into her. How they laughed, how they fought, and how they loved. It felt surreal. The man who had left such a raw imprint on her life, now standing a mere few feet away, radiating confusion and vulnerability. Each step forward, each social interaction, unfurled in slow motion around her. She felt the warmth of the ballroom receding, and the chill of the evening pressing into her skin like a reminder of all she wanted to escape. A million what-ifs surfaced, demands from her conscience battling against the version of herself poised at this threshold. David's jovial laughter reached her ears again, pulling her focus back to the warmth that had initially bolstered her courage. Did she really want to allow Jake to dictate this moment? To tear at the fabric of the honesty she had been nurturing? No, she reminded herself. Confronting Jake didn't mean abandoning her truth. She turned back toward the crowd that had once felt joyous, but now it looked more like a silent sea, flowing toward her as she remained anchored to the spot. Jake's gaze sharpened with desperation, a silent plea perhaps to resolve unfinished stories between them. What could he possibly want? An apology? Forgiveness? Or was he merely ready to reap the rewards of their shared history? Sarah, she heard his voice, raw and unguarded. The sound struck her profoundly, and though her heart thudded painfully against her chest, she sensed a shift within herself. Maybe this was the moment she needed, a chance to reclaim the narrative that had slipped from her grasp. This was not merely about battling past shadows, but grounding herself in the present. Why had she let fear control her so long? Jake stood vulnerable, yet she understood that this was her chance to assert control over the direction of their shared dialogue. If she chose to engage with him, It wouldn't signify weakness, but rather an acknowledgement of her own strength, the ability to face both the past and future with clarity. With deliberate steps, she approached. Jake shifted uneasily, his usual bravado diminished. Their eyes locked, and she felt an electric tension thrumming in the air. She composed herself, her heart whispering truths she had long buried. "Why are you here?" she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. It was a question that clawed its way out, fueled not by anger, but by curiosity layered with trepidation. "What do you mean? I didn't know this was happening," Jake replied, an edge creeping into his tone. The uncertainty rattled her. "I mean, why now? After everything?" The confrontation held significance. It was raw fear intermingled with simmering resolve, both propelling her forward and threatening to consume her. Jake's reaction was unpredictable, his shock morphing into something she couldn't fully read. In that moment, she felt an invincible shift within. No longer just a woman with a secret, but a person confronting her past to carve out her future. Here in this confrontation, her growth was both stubborn and liberating. With David still innocent to the dialogue escalating behind him, she found herself at a crossroads. Would she stand firm in these new revelations, or allow the dialogue with Jake to supersede her own narrative yet again? The swirling chaos in her mind urged her to untangle this web before confronting David. Time was slipping rapidly, and she could feel the weight of choices now coiling tightly around her heart. As the silence stretched between them, dense with implications, she realized the revelation wouldn't just be about her past. It was pivotal for her very identity. "Sarah," Jake said again, shaking his head as if trying to gather words to bridge years of silence. "It's not what you think." The uncertainty surged within her, as did that familiar pulse of courage. The moment of truth was upon her, and she stood ready to face it, uncertain of where the path might lead. Would she unravel the truths of their past, or would it bind her even tighter? It was time to make a choice, one that could change everything. A silence descended, thick with the unspoken weight of choices. Sarah stared into Jake's eyes, searching for clarity amid the chaos swirling in her heart. His expression remained inscrutable, a mask hiding a lifetime of shared memories and regrets, yet forcing her to confront the fragility of her own construct, the life she had built since he left. "Not what I think?" she echoed, growing bolder. "What exactly do you expect me to think, Jake? You disappeared without a word, leaving me to figure it all out. Now you show up and act like there are no consequences?" Her voice trembled, but surged with rising conviction. Each word unraveled a thread of fear, bearing her own truth to the light. The crowd's joyful ambiance beyond their confrontation blurred, fading into a dull hum. It felt like stepping off a ledge into an unknown abyss, both terrifying and exhilarating. She sensed the pivotal point in her life, standing on the edge of reclaiming agency over her narrative, or letting the tides of the past sweep her away again. "I know I hurt you," Jake said softly, his voice barely audible against the distant music. "But you have to understand, I was scared. I didn't know how to face you without—" "Without what?" Sarah interrupted, summoning every ounce of strength. "Without wanting to slip back into the memories that hold you captive? Are you here to pull me back into that life, only to disappear again when it gets too real?" Jake's brow furrowed, as if her words had struck a raw nerve. "I've changed, Sarah. I didn't realize how much I needed you, how much I needed to apologize, until it was too late. I thought you were better off without me." His confession hit her like a thunderclap. It was both a revelation and an awakening. How could she want to forgive someone who had walked away, yet here he was, bearing his heart with a sincerity she hadn't expected? The anger inside her flickered, and doubt crept in, accompanied by the undertow of guilt. Was she angry because he abandoned her, or because she had, in losing him, lost herself? The fear of vulnerability clawed back at the walls she'd painstakingly constructed. "Do you even realize what you're asking?" she challenged, shaking off the trepidation rising within. "You think an apology is enough? You broke my trust, twice. I thought you were someone I could count on, and you vanished when it mattered." "I know," he replied, and the sorrow in his voice punctured her defenses. "But things have changed. Please, just hear me out before you make a decision." As she stood there, contemplating the weight of his words, a flicker of possibility ignited within her. Maybe this was not merely about Jake's redemption. Perhaps it was a chance for her to define her identity, to re-evaluate what strength truly meant. "Let's be clear," she said, her voice steadying with newfound clarity. "I will no longer let my past dictate my present. If you truly want to be here, you need to understand I'm no longer the same person waiting in the wings for your return." His eyes widened, a mix of admiration and surprise. "That's exactly who I want to see. Stronger, independent." A brief silence lingered between them, raw but electric. They were no longer the same young lovers tangled in flighty emotions. They were two adults, wrestling with their choices and confronting unveiled truths. "Then show me," she replied, her heart racing. "Show me what that means for us." Just as a sense of mutual understanding began to solidify, David's laughter pierced through the depth of their connection, recalling Sarah back to reality, the swirling ballroom, the glances from friends, and the expectations of their shared lives. "Sarah!" A voice called her back to the present, but her gaze remained locked on Jake. The moment felt suspended in time, the decisive edge of a cliff with no visible ground. In that suspension, she realized something vital. Could she truly create a path forward, not merely with Jake in mind, but with herself as the priority? As uncertainty loomed, she sensed the precipice she teetered upon. Resolving to protect her heart while searching for redemption pushed her forward, wrapping each hope and fear tightly around her chest. "Are you prepared for what you'll discover?" she challenged Jake, her voice resonating with both caution and fierce determination. "You might be surprised by my choice." With the echoes of laughter mingling with unresolved tension, Sarah took a deep breath, knowing one final conversation could unlock pathways to healing or further entanglement. What would it mean to embrace the future while confronting a past that hung heavily like a specter? A new phase emerged from their exchange, and the choice lay before her, introspection or retreat. The unfolding reality would require her to navigate the complexity of her feelings without losing the progress she had made. What could she uncover about herself in this new chapter? Would she find true strength in forgiveness or acknowledgement? In that moment, she realized how fractured her journey had truly been, and the singular task ahead, to embrace her voice while confronting the ghosts that lingered. The vibrant colors of the ballroom blurred into the background as Sarah pulled herself back from the dizzying depth of her conversation with Jake. She felt the pulse of her heart quicken, the thrill of a confrontation teetering on the brink of transformation. Taking a steadying breath, she attempted to ground herself in the present, the laughter of friends serving as a reminder of the life she'd carved out, one far removed from the boy who once held her so tightly. "Sarah!" David's voice cut through her thoughts again, a sharp contrast to the emotional labyrinth she found herself navigating. It brought her into focus like a camera lens adjusting to light. He approached, a jovial grin on his face, oblivious to the storm brewing just beyond his peripheral vision. "I thought you vanished," he joked lightly, eliciting a forced smile from her. Yet beneath the surface, the battle raged on. How could she reconcile her friendship with David, who represented a part of her life she built after Jake, while grappling with the questions lingering in her heart? David wrapped an arm around her shoulder, pulling her towards the dancing crowd. "Come on, we've got to celebrate. You should let loose. You've earned it." Sarah felt the weight of his enthusiasm almost suffocating as fear clawed its way back into her mind. Let loose? How was she supposed to do that when every beat of the music echoed the choices she faced? The clarity she had summoned moments ago began to waver. She wanted to be the woman who moved forward, strong and unyielding, but the past, its memories, its attachments, urged her to hesitate. Amid the twirling couples and glittering lights, an epiphany emerged. What did she truly want? Was it Jake's presence that drew her, or the comfort of returning to the familiarity of love that had once enveloped her? And if she chose to embrace that past, would it distort the present she had carefully constructed? As friends swirled around her in a chaotic jubilation, she noticed Jake watching from a distance, the weight of an apology still etched upon his features. A cold thrill coursed through her, pushing her into deeper introspection. Perhaps this is not merely about love, she mused internally, but about assessing my worth beyond old definitions. This is about reclaiming my story. With renewed conviction, she took a step back from David and the relentless energy of the crowd. She needed to articulate what these experiences represented in her growing narrative. Her desire to grow professionally, a new career that wasn't intertwined with her past, years of resilience culminating in her transformation into someone much more than the girl who once waited in Jake's shadow. There was no denying Jake lingered, his presence a constant ghost in her psyche. But perhaps that presence could coalesce into something unexpected. Not burden, but opportunity. Wasn't this her moment to unveil a perspective wrapped in self-discovery? She could redefine not just her relationship with him, but her whole being. "Sarah, are you okay?" David's concern ripped through her thoughts, and she met his gaze, surprised at the warmth radiating from his expression. It sparked a faint memory of shared ambition and dreams, reigniting the foundation of their friendship. "I need to talk to you," she said, steadiness lacing her determination. "About everything." His brow furrowed slightly, yet intrigue danced in his eyes. Sarah felt a pulse of anxiety surge. This conversation could lead to uncomfortable revelations, but it was necessary. As they moved to a quieter corner, the world around them began to fade further. In that intimate space, Sarah resolved to articulate her desire to explore new paths, as an individual, as a woman who no longer needed to rely on remnants of the past. But then, her gaze shifted to Jake, now closer than before, the air thickening with unspoken words. They were two lives intertwined, not just by history, but by choices, still unfolding. "David," she began, feeling the weight of her truth about to spill, "I'm about to confront something pivotal, and I want you to understand." But just as Sarah found her voice, Jake's approach generated a tension that felt like a tightrope, teetering dangerously. Would she have the strength to face him, to draw the line between their past and her future? "Stay right here," she instructed David, a surge of anticipation propelling her forward. The moment of truth seemed ready to unfurl, and with it, her destiny began to beckon, stirring both fear and excitement within her. Would this confrontation lead her further along the path of self-discovery, or would she falter before the shadows of her past? In the charged atmosphere, Sarah approached Jake with a blend of resolve and uncertainty. Each step felt deliberate, echoing her determination to reclaim a narrative that had long been dictated by others. The sound of laughter and music faded into a distant hum as she confronted the reality of her choices that had splintered her from the boy she once loved, yet had propelled her toward the woman she aspired to become. "Hey," she said, not masking her vulnerability. Jake looked up, his expression a mix of relief and trepidation. There was a time when this moment would have been filled with unfiltered emotions, but now it felt more like an examination, both of him and herself. "Sarah," he began, but she interrupted him, unwilling to let him set the tone of their reunion. "I need to speak first," she asserted, her voice firm, yet laced with the tremors of her lingering fears. "I'm done letting memories dictate my future." His brow furrowed as he processed her words, a flicker of understanding crossing his features. It was here, in this tentative space, that Sarah recognized the shift. She was no longer the girl who clung to the remnants of unfulfilled promises. She was here, demanding clarity. "Why did you come back?" she pressed, the weight of years crowding around them like shadows. Jake's eyes darted away for a moment, as if searching for a fugitive thought. "I needed to say I'm sorry," he finally admitted, his voice barely above the music. "For everything. I realized I left behind more than just a relationship." A wave of emotion surged through Sarah, almost as if he had torn open a wound. She remembered the pain, the loneliness that had characterized her life post-Jake, but rather than letting it overwhelm her, she framed it in a new light. This was a moment not just of confrontation, but of potential healing if she chose to seize it. "Apologies are just words if they aren't backed by actions," she countered, her heart racing with the tension. "What does that apology mean for me now? For you?" His lips pressed into a thin line, and Sarah could see the conflict within him. It was a vulnerability she hadn't anticipated, his fight to navigate between the guilt of the past and the person he hoped to be in the present. "I want to be better, Sarah," he replied earnestly, a spark igniting in his eyes that hadn't been there before. "But I know you've built a life without me. I wouldn't want to disrupt that." The weight of his words settled into her. It struck her then, the essence of her journey wasn't about whether she wanted Jake back in her life, but how she had forged her identity apart from him. The woman standing in front of him was no longer an extension of their relationship. She was a tapestry woven with ambition, resilience, and self-worth that she had fought to build. "I appreciate that," she said, her voice softer now. "But I won't let nostalgia paint my decisions. I need to know if you're ready to support me in what I want to achieve, not the version of me you left behind." She watched him grasp the air between them, his expression shifting as he tried to comprehend her stance. This was more than just an emotional crossroads. It was a true test of her development. Would he see her as an equal partner in moving forward, or an unfinished project in need of fixings? "That's fair," he conceded, a hint of respect in his tone. "I want to support you, really. But I also want a chance to prove I can be someone you can trust. Is that at all possible?" Sarah felt a trembling possibility, like the flutter of vibrant wings within her heart. It was the dynamic she'd long needed, a collaboration, not a dependence. She was on the brink of this new path, and every question exchanged with Jake was shaping her future. "Let's see how this goes. Right now, I'm committed to exploring what I want." As they separated at last, she took a deep breath, realizing what had just transpired. It was not merely a conversation. It was the assertion of her own position in this shared history. A semblance of power coursed through her, having articulated her boundaries and her hopes. Yet even as she walked away, certainty stirred alongside doubt. What if Jake turned out to be an obstacle instead of a bridge? What if their journeys were still too misaligned? "David," she called, spotting her friend, who had been watching from a distance, curiosity etched across his face. She felt a new urgency swirling within her. A powerful change had begun, and she was ready to explore every facet of it. But as Jake lingered behind, their earlier discussion hanging in the air, Sarah felt an unshakable tension blooming in her chest. Had she truly untangled herself from the past, or was there a deeper entanglement yet to be revealed? Determined, she took one more glance back at him, encoding their interaction, eager to understand if this was a pivotal turn in her narrative or merely an illusion. What lay ahead was uncharted, withholding the answers she yearned for, a beckoning unknown that she felt both terrified and invigorated by. Time to find out what happens next, she thought, her heart a blend of expectation and resolve, as she moved into a future that would be defined by her choices alone. As Sarah walked away from Jake, a wave of uncertainty washed over her. The conversation had offered both an opportunity for growth and a potential pitfall, and she felt the weight of her choices pressing down on her shoulders. She shook her head slightly, trying to clear her thoughts but finding them tangled in a web of unresolved emotions. A sense of urgency ignited within her, a resolve to move forward and focus on her aspirations for the future. David noticed her preoccupation as she approached him. "Hey, everything okay?" he asked, concern etched across his face. She sighed, still processing. "Yeah, just life, you know?" Sarah forced a smile, but David was perceptive, recognizing the underlying tension. "Do you want to talk about it?" His offer was genuine, and it struck her how grateful she felt to have someone in her corner. "I just had this conversation with Jake. It's a lot to unpack," she admitted, her thoughts swirling like leaves in the autumn wind. "I know I'm supposed to feel something, but instead, I feel more confused." "Confused can be a good starting point, you know," David said, leaning against a wall, casually tossing a pebble in the air. "It shows you're thinking about it deeply." "Is it?" Sarah questioned, wondering if confusion was truly a catalyst for action or merely a way to stall. David shrugged. "Maybe it's the beginning of you figuring out what you actually want. You've been so focused on the past, maybe it's time to redirect that energy into the future." His words struck a chord. Sarah had poured so much energy into understanding her previous relationship that she had neglected to define her goals. What was she passionate about? Where did she see herself in 5 years? "I feel like my ambitions got buried under everything else," she finally said, the confession seeping from deep within her. "I wanted to start my own business, but the fears and insecurities took over." "Then this is your moment. You backed away from a toxic part of your life, and now you have the chance to fill that space with something productive. What's holding you back?" It wasn't just a rhetorical question. David's tone was urging her to confront her apprehensions head-on. "What if I fail? What if I can't get it off the ground?" "Look, everyone fails at some point," David replied, his voice firm. "The real failure is not trying. Besides, you've already succeeded in so much more than most people could handle. You've overcome personal battles that would have broken others." Her heart fluttered. Flashes of inspiration sparked in her mind. Business ideas, designs, the possibility of a thriving enterprise. It was invigorating and terrifying all at once. For the first time, she felt the embers of her ambition flicker back to life. "Okay," she said finally, a smile creeping onto her face. "Let's get serious about a plan. I need to define what I want." "Now you're talking." David's enthusiasm was contagious, prompting her heart to beat just a tad faster. They found a quieter spot near a park bench, Sarah eager to brainstorm. As they laid out her ideas, it felt like each suggestion opened a floodgate of confidence and potential. But soon, the doubts resurfaced. "What if people don't take me seriously? I've been detached from this world for so long," she said, wrestling with a familiar sense of imposter syndrome. "Don't underestimate your experiences. They've shaped you into someone capable and resilient. Just because you've been away doesn't mean you don't belong. Are you ready to showcase that?" His challenge sparked a defensive layer within her. She had to prove that she had not just survived, but thrived. "Yes," she said, her heart racing with newfound determination. "I'm ready." The reaffirmation of her commitment felt like a rebirth. This was an opportunity to carve her own identity. Yet, as the day progressed, a sense of unease also simmered beneath her excitement. What if every step she took was met with resistance, both from herself and the outside world? In the days to come, she would have to navigate this intricate dance of self-discovery, balancing her newfound ambitions alongside unresolved emotions about Jake. Could she really forge ahead, or would she falter under the pressure of her past? As dusk fell and a vibrant sunset painted the sky, Sarah caught sight of Jake making his way toward them. Uncertainty colliding with hope, she felt a tightening in her chest. Would he disrupt her progress or offer the support she now craved? "Only one way to find out," she muttered to herself, preparing for yet another unraveling moment that could define not only her future, but also her heart. This time, she had to stand her ground. As the vibrant colors of the sunset blurred into the horizon, Sarah felt an internal tension expand. Jake approached, his presence triggering a whirlpool of thoughts. She had just begun rejuvenating her ambitions, yet his arrival threatened to disrupt her newfound clarity. The urge to retreat into uncertainty clashed with her determination to forge ahead, a war within herself. "Hey," Jake greeted, a mix of caution and familiarity in his voice. His gaze searched her face, and for a brief moment, Sarah felt the weight of their shared history pressing down on her. "Hi," she replied, surprising herself with the steadiness of her tone. She had rehearsed this moment just in time for it to arrive, and now she was scrambling to anchor herself amidst swirling emotions. "Can we talk?" he asked, his expression earnest. Sarah glanced at David, who was observing with a supportive yet expectant look. Although she desired clarity about her goals, the fear of diving back into the past loomed large. "Sure." She could almost hear the pulse of her heart as she steeled herself for whatever direction this conversation might take. They found a less crowded corner of the park, away from the remnants of laughter and chatter. Jake leaned against a tree, appearing more vulnerable than she remembered. "I've been thinking a lot since the last time we spoke," he began, his voice quieter than she anticipated. "About us?" Sarah interjected. The bristle of defensiveness in her tone surprised her, but she refused to let his charm disarm her again. She needed to be firm, to establish where she stood. "Yes, but not just that," said Jake, taking a deep breath as if trying to muster strength to continue. "I know I hurt you, and I can't erase that. But I've been working on myself. I actually signed up for therapy." His admission caught her off guard. Sarah fought the instinctive impulse to soften, both for him and for the attachment that still tugged at her heart. "That's great," she managed, her tone neutral. "But what does that mean for us?" Jake stepped closer. "It means I want to understand better how to communicate and be better in a relationship. I owe it to you to clear this mess up." Her heart raced, heating with the friction of old feelings and new ambitions. "Jake, I'm focusing on myself now. I need to carve a path that's independent." Each word felt like a proclamation of her growth, her refusal to be dragged back. "I get that," he replied, tone more sincere than defensive. "But can we at least explore if there's something left? I'm not asking you to throw everything away." The plea resonated with her insecurities. Was she being too hasty? "I really want to do this on my own. I'm scared of falling back into old patterns." Silence hung between them like a taut string, vibrating with the unresolved history they shared. "I'm not that person anymore," Jake insisted, desperation edging his voice. "People change, yes, but I can't risk my future because of past instincts," she replied, her voice firm, yet a storm was brewing beneath her calm facade. The desire to believe in his transformation was clawing at her. But before she could delve deeper into these thoughts, a commotion echoed nearby. David's voice broke through, punctuating the mood with a sudden shout. A couple stood arguing, the man visibly distressed. The tension acted as a catalyst to Sarah's mounting feelings, jolting her from the moment and shaking loose other obscured worries. In that instant, she realized that dealing with her past would be an ongoing process, a complex dance rather than a decisive endpoint. She needed to claim her power. "Jake, I can't promise anything. My priority is to build something for myself, starting now." His expression twisted, a mixture of pain and acknowledgement effortlessly crossing over his features. Yet, Sarah felt a flicker of liberation, realizing that she was not tethered to him anymore. As she turned to walk back toward David, the potential of her ambitions loomed larger, mingling with an inexplicable and haunting possibility that her confrontation with Jake was far from over. It was a decision point, one that could redefine not just her past, but her entire future. But soaring above the uncertainty, a new thought emerged. What if Jake's efforts to change were genuine? Was it fair to shut that door entirely? Her mind buzzed with these contradictions clamoring for attention. With her heart racing, Sarah knew she was just beginning to draft the contours of her life's new chapter. The path ahead, shadowed by uncertainty, beckoned her to face what lay beneath the surface. With Jake's presence igniting old feelings, she was acutely aware that the next decision could either consolidate her emerging strength or plunge her deeper into doubt. "Am I brave enough to explore this?" she whispered under her breath, the weight of unanswered questions weaving through her thoughts. The night whispered back in silence, foreshadowing inner trials she would have to confront. As she stepped away from Jake, alive to both fear and possibility, she realized her story was not yet complete. Was she truly ready to face what emerged from the shadows of her past? Would her need for independence clash with a desire to understand Jake anew? Days stretched on after the wedding, and the air carried a different texture for Sarah. She felt a subtle shift within herself, an awakening perhaps, spurred by her decisions and the confrontation with Jake. Each morning, sunlight filtered through her window, illuminating a path not only toward her ambitions, but towards a profound engagement with her truth. With the remnants of her life with Jake behind her, Sarah began to channel her energy into a budding business venture. She immersed herself in researching, planning, and developing ideas for a local art consultancy that would focus on showcasing emerging talents. Art had always been a passion of hers, yet until now had remained an afterthought in the dizzying cycle of uncertainty. The drive to forge a new path felt invigorating. Meeting with local artists and visualizing how she could merge their creativity with a business model ignited a fire within her. Each interaction, each brainstorming session, was imbued with the new confidence she had cultivated. Days turned into weeks, and she transformed from a woman divided by her past into a decisive entrepreneur, ready to take risks backed by sincerity and vision. Meanwhile, her interactions with David strengthened. He was not merely a supportive friend, but a reminder of the person she wanted to become. Bolder, more ambitious, and focused on authenticity. She could sense the new dynamic flourishing between them, grounded in mutual respect. Their discussions were no longer mere small talk. They delved into deeper subjects, exploring aspirations intertwined with their evolving identities. One night over wine, she shared her plans. "I need to launch this consultancy," she said, her voice steady, excitement radiating from her. "It's terrifying but exhilarating." David nodded, eyes sparkling with encouragement. "You're ready for this, Sarah. You've come so far. The only thing left to do is trust yourself." As weeks passed and her venture began to take shape, Sarah could feel the exhilarating rush of newfound purpose. This venture wasn't just about overcoming Jake. It was a declaration of independence, an acknowledgement of the passions that lay dormant within her until now. Then came the moment of truth, her first exhibition. The venue buzzed with creativity and energy, showcasing brilliant works that echoed the voices of artists from the community. As people filtered in, she felt a rush of excitement blend with anxiety. Would they appreciate her ideas? The event unfolded beautifully. Viewers engaged, conversations flowed, and Sarah stood proudly among the artworks, a grounding force for the artists she had so passionately supported. The thrill of applause surged through her as she realized her dream was not only a possibility, but a living reality. Among the crowd, right on schedule, came Jake, a familiar face that stirred a whirlwind of past emotions. His eyes sought hers, reflecting a mixture of hope and apprehension. With each step closer, Sarah stood firmly, embodying the progress she had made in shedding the shadows of uncertainty. "Sarah, it's incredible," he said, genuine admiration lacing his words. "You did this." A silent pause hung between them, weighing the implications of what their encounter meant now. "Thank you. It's fulfilling," she replied, her heart steady. In that instant, Sarah found a new awareness within herself, not just of him, but of her own evolution. Jake took a breath, glancing around at the exhibit. "I've been reflecting a lot. I hope we can talk and clear some things up." As he spoke, Sarah sensed two roads diverging before her, one leading to the familiar hang-ups of their past, and the other towards the boldness of forging a new narrative. "I appreciate that," she answered, each word steeped in maturity. "But right now, I'm focusing on my ambitions." Jake's expression shifted, but remained resolute. "I understand. I'm not here to disrupt your journey. I'm here to support you in whatever you need. But I also want to reconnect, if you'd let me." With each moment, Sarah reconciled her past with her present. "Let's take it step by step," she suggested, voice steady. "What does that mean for us? I won't go back to being defined by old patterns." A flicker of determination crossed Jake's face, but Sarah felt triumphant, not necessarily at the prospect of rekindling their old flame, but at the strength of her own voice echoing in the space. For the first time, she was articulating not just desires, but boundaries. The exhibit continued, laughter blending with exchanged ideas, and Sarah reveled in her triumph, a culmination of effort, self-discovery, and resilience. Days later, Sarah received an email filled with accolades from the community, along with inquiries from potential clients eager to collaborate. Her heart swelled. She had not only created a bridge for herself, but for others as well. The synergy felt monumental. This was her moment of confirmation, not anchored by Jake or the past, but underscored by a clarity born of her own making. The cycle of dependency broke, leading Sarah toward autonomy between her heart and her aspirations. She gained confidence from knowing that her identity could soar beyond inherited relationships. Now, she stood tall on the precipice of her future, ready to embrace moments yet to unfold. The echoes of old narratives faded beneath the fearless hope of new ones waiting to be written. This was growth, concrete and palpable. The realization that Sarah was forever more than the reflection of someone else's narrative. She stepped forward, not just towards Jake or any remnants of the past, but towards her resplendent future. Life, vibrant and unedited, awaited her embrace. As you read this transformative tale of growth and personal achievement, now is your chance to dive deeper into these emotional journeys. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss out on the next exclusive story that will guide you through life's complexities. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and boost more inspiring content that helps you and others navigate their journeys. We want to hear from you. Comment your thoughts and reactions, and let us know your theories about Sarah's next chapter. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible conclusion and awaken their own potential today. Don't wait even one more second. Your support means everything.